Welcome to section 3.10, Hand Tracing a Program. Here's an excerpt from How to Think Like a Computer Scientist by Alan Downey. Programming is a complex process, and since it's done by human beings, it often leads to errors. For whimsical reasons, programming errors are called bugs, and the process of tracking them down and correcting them is called debugging. One of the most important skills you should acquire from working with this book is debugging. Although it can be frustrating, debugging is one of the most intellectually rich, challenging, and interesting parts of programming. In some ways, debugging is like detective work. You're confronted with clues, and you have to infer the processes and events that lead to the results you see. Debugging is also like an experimental science. Once you have an idea of what's going wrong, you modify the program and try again. If your hypothesis was correct, then you can predict the result of the modification, and you can take a step closer to a working program. If your hypothesis was wrong, you have to come up with a new one. For some people, programming and debugging are the same thing. That is, programming is the process of gradually debugging a program until it does what you want. The idea is that you should always start with a working program that does something and make small modifications, debugging them as you go so that you always have a working program. One very simple way of debugging is to use a hand trace chart. This approach involves acting as if you're the computer executing a program. Step through and execute each statement one by one, and record the contents of each variable after the statement execution using a hand trace chart. Here's an example. In this program, we have three variables: length, width, and area. The program is supposed to calculate the area based on the length and width. The hand trace chart shows us at which point in the program each of these variables is modified. If we find that our output is anomalous or unexpected, we can go to the hand trace chart and see where those values were modified, making sure that they were changed in the right places in the right way. Finally, let's take a look at a more sophisticated approach to debugging. In Visual Studio, you can insert breakpoints next to a line. Simply click the line next to which you want to insert the breakpoint. In our BMI example, let's insert a breakpoint at line 13. The breakpoint will cause the program to pause at that line, and while it's paused, we can view the values of the variables. In other words, we can examine the state of the program at a certain point while it's running. Here the program begins as before. If we enter 84 for height and 300 for weight, the program pauses and we have a chance to examine the values of the variables at this point. We can see that BMI has the value of 29, height has the value of 84, and weight has the value of 300. If we click Continue, the program finishes executing, and we can see the results displayed on the console.